Hi, my name is Jamie Ett, and I'm a diversity and inclusion consultant who's been working with schools for more than 10 years to try to end the problem of bullying in our school communities. Today, I'm here to talk with you about a particular way to think about bullying in hopes that we can start to act a little bit more as whole communities, bringing together teachers, students, and parents to prevent bullying before it actually happens in our school communities.
I'm Tina Thompson. I have 4 beautiful children, and I actually work in the field of cancer diagnostics.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. So today we're going to be talking a lot about bullying, and my particular approach to bullying is talking about identity-based bullying, thinking about the ways in which particular identities are targeted for very particular reasons. And I'm wondering if with 4 young kids, I know that all 4 of them now are in school.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one of them's in sort of the pre-K age, but what concerns you have or worries that you have, or what maybe advice do you have for other parents?
Probably actually have several concerns, but one of the biggest concerns, I guess, would be how do you identify if your child is in fact being bullied?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a huge concern that I hear from a lot of different parents, which is why we created a whole segment for parents just on that one issue. And I think one of the biggest things to look for is particular changes in behavior, right? And so we talk about if there is a sudden sullenness or sadness, particularly when going to school or coming home from school, looking for that, and maybe once it starts to become a pattern, if it happens on more than one day. Another thing is thinking about if they suddenly lose interest in activities that they love, right? Because for instance, for myself, when I was a kid, I experienced a fair amount of bullying, and I loved basketball, but I quit the basketball team because I was so sick of being made fun of at basketball practice, and the coaches didn't intervene. They didn't do anything about it. But my parents just figured, he's sick of basketball. He wants to move on to baseball or whatever the new thing was, and versus really listening and trying to understand, okay, well, why don't you want to go to basketball? Those kinds of things I think are key. And then the other thing that I talk to a lot of parents about is if they have allies, particularly either other adult allies who the kids trust, that they might say things to that person, or an uncle or a friend that they might say things to that they might not say to their parents, or if they have particularly mature friends, right? Like when my parents found out that I was being bullied regularly, it was because my friend came to them and was like, do you have any idea how much Jamie's being made fun of at school? You know what I mean? So those are some of the key things, and we'll talk about it some more, but it's a concern that a lot of parents share.
Yeah, definitely. So the other thing would be, I know a lot of times parents, one child's mean to another child. Like for instance, when I have twins, and my twins started preschool in the 3-year-old program, and my 3-year-old was so excited about the outfit that she had on and ran to school to her friend and was like, look at my shirt, isn't it beautiful, don't you like it? And the little girl turned to her and was like, that's an ugly shirt, like what? It's heartbreaking to you, but I mean, I know some parents may say like, gosh, that kid's a bully,
Right.
But I don't know if that would necessarily fall into the definition of what a bully is. So just want to get some more information from you as to how do you identify if that really is bullying or not.
Yeah, and that's actually a frustration that I hear from a lot of schools on the school side, is they have kids who were teased on a particular day, and their parents call and say that my student's being bullied, and they're like, okay, well, can we talk about the pattern that you're seeing of bullying? And so we have to often try to be precise with our language and understand what's teasing, what's happening on a particular day in a particular instance because of that shirt incident, right? Versus when we're talking about bullying, the definition that we use is a pattern of sustained, regular harassment, violence, or neglect, right, based on a particular aspect of the student's identity or experience. And so in that case, if a parent had come to me and like, your kid's a bully for that, I would have been like, maybe, let's talk about this. I think the key to that is at different times or another, all students are mean to each other, right? Like and so I often try really hard to avoid, particularly when I'm talking to students, I avoid the language of saying that a kid is a bully. Instead, I talk about bullying behavior. I say, you know, well, what you did was a mean thing, and this is why, and this is how, when you continue doing it, how it hurts other people, right? And think about what are the bullying behaviors that are existing. Because even anymore, I actually had a parent at a school come to me and they said, my student is being a jerk to other kids, but somebody came to that kid after he was a jerk and said, "You're being a bully." And my student was so distraught because that term is now such a loaded term in society that it distracted from the behavior. The kid couldn't even reflect on what he was doing wrong because he was so distraught over being called a bully. So, you know, even trying to change that conversation and understand that it has to sort of be it definitely should be addressed if a kid on any given day is being mean to another kid, but unless there's that pattern, we don't necessarily want to think of it as bullying.
Right, definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's great.
Do you have any advice that you'd give for other parents, particularly, you know, that you have a wide range of ages of kids, and so do you have advice that you give for other parents who maybe they're worried about their kids starting school or going to a new school or something along those lines?
So I think our situation is kind of unique in that our eldest has always been really outgoing and hasn't really had, thankfully, at this point, obviously he's still young, but hasn't really had any issues with making friends. And he's usually that one kid that if there's a new kid or someone who doesn't have a friend to play with, he's, you know, there, you know, saying, "Hey, you want to play?" That type of thing.
That's awesome.
And then my next two children, they're twins, and so they've always had each other, you know, and so if someone's kind of being a jerk or whatever, you know, they're just kind of like whatever and just go and do their own thing. So I really don't know, you know, any advice. I haven't really experienced that I know of any of my children being bullied, fortunately.
Well, I love what you just said about your oldest, though, because what we often try to encourage when we're working with young people is there's bullying behavior, but there's also the other side of the coin, which is what we call inclusive behavior, right? Like trying to make sure that every student feels safe and comfortable. And when there are students like your eldest who does that, who goes out of his way to try to help other people feel comfortable, that's the kind of thing that we really want to encourage in young people. So that's awesome.
Excellent. That's great. And so last question I wanted to ask you was, I mean, we try to work really hard to get our kids to respect people, you know, respect themselves, respect others, do as my eldest does, and include everybody regardless. But how do you know, I mean, if you're really doing what you need to do to ensure that your child's not the bully?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I talk a lot with about parents is that whether or not you realize it, you are setting the example every day for how your kids are going to act. Like our kids mirror us, you know, that's what they do. And so the best thing you can do to make sure is to model for them, you know, when you're meeting new people or interacting with new people, modeling for them what that looks like and talking to them about what it means to include everyone else. And I always think about a story that my partner likes to tell about when she was probably 3, and she was sitting, maybe two or three, sitting in the back seat. She doesn't remember this, but her dad tells the story all the time. She was sitting in the back seat, and her dad's driving along, listening to some music, and he hears this little tiny voice in the back seat say, "Pick an effing lane!" And he realized, oh my God, I didn't realize she could pick that up, that she was in tune with that, you know. So being that model is one of the most important things that we can do, and being the model and you know, in both sides, like talking to them about what it feels like to feel hurt, so that they, you know, they can start to talk through those emotions, because so often they're afraid to talk through those emotions when they're feeling hurt, but also to show them what it means to be proactively positive, right? And I think that that's one of the scariest parts, is to realize that if we are not setting the right example, they're going to do what we do, you know? So, excellent. Thank you so much for taking some time. And
absolutely.
Then
Thank you. It's been a pleasure being here with you, and
Thank
really
you.
excited about the work that you're doing.
Good.
So.
Thank you.